got sent here 2:43 a.m. Central Time on Wednesday, April 23rd, 2014. And I've got you over here on my webpage. I'm going to put a link down below to this so you guys can read up on this and investigate yourself on this new discovery that was just announced on CBS News of all places on the 21st, yesterday or a day and a half ago, announcing that the use of dual beams, in this case lasers, also frequency, can be used to have an interacting effect with each other. One beam used to strip electrons from the atmosphere, the other beam used to pump up that area of plasma that's created that then forms CCN, cloud condensation nuclei particles, which form into raindrops. And they can target the beams, cross them, use one beam to pump the other one, and produce weather. And this is confirmed. Here's the article down below. The graduate students have done the experiments in the laboratory and also can control lightning. So we're not just talking about making a plasma area, making lightning and controlling where it goes using two transmitters. Now, scalar interferometry, that is something that was a term that was coined by Lieutenant Colonel Thomas Bearden in the 1980s, where he talked about two transmitters crossing their beams, having a heating effect, a plasma effect, at a distance, which then can be used for anything from missile defense to causing weather, causing earthquakes, and he explains it all. In the 1980s, he does a full conference. This is just a small part of that. I think it's like 2 hours long. Anyways, you can watch Thomas Bearden explain scalar radar in the 1980s, or you can read the article confirming one beam over the other, one pulses, their word, not mine, into the other, creating the plasma bubble and controlling it. And they call it a filament. Now, here's a diagram showing real-life examples of scalar interferometry happening. We're talking about two beams crossing, having an effect or an excitement where the beams cross. Here's another one, where the beam crosses, the other beam is excited. And here's an example, real life, again, in a storm where we have two intersecting radar stations, one right in the middle, and we've got a interferometry happening in between the three. This is during the time of the Joplin tornado. We've had some very severe weather events caused by frequency. The United States Navy used frequency only, not lasers, frequency, HAARP, and a radar to generate a plasma bubble in the atmosphere and then control it, pump it up, and move it for over an hour. That was at the start of 2013, U.S. Navy using HAARP up in Alaska. Now, if you guys are curious how this works, the process behind it, it takes way longer than this kind of video to explain it. We're talking multiple hours I've spent explaining these things. Also, we have 3 pages, each page almost a month worth of reading in itself. So you can go read those. That's all here. Just wanted to bring you up to date, let you know that everybody who said it was impossible, the laboratory experiments have been done. There you go, guys. Much love.
Take a look at this shrub. This shrub is a telltale sign. Unless you want to tell me that some invisible donut fell on top of this tree, there is something very strange happening with the shape of this tree and the electromagnetic properties of what happens in a tree to retain its shape. Now, the beautiful thing about cedar is that because the branches are so malleable, they do a beautiful expression they start weeping when it's like they're weeping in response to electromagnetic field changes. Okay, that's not what happens with stiff trees like oak trees and maple trees and other trees. They don't have the luxury of having this flexibility inherent in their branches. So when you see this happening around a cedar tree, the other thing you need to look for is, has there been other electromagnetic physical stress demonstrated in other trees, in other branches? Now, what you'll see in other plants is that when they get subjected to really high intensity electromagnetic stress, they will break. The branches will actually break. Why? Because they don't have the flexibility that's inherent in these really supple branches that you have on a cedar tree. Well, what's so fascinating about this video, you guys, is that these guys go on a walking tour of this neighborhood and they are shocked by what they consider to be a tornado. But what I want you guys to notice is all they're actually observing here, you guys, are uprooted trees and broken branches. They're not actually observing the debris field of a tornado. And here's a very good of many examples in this video that you have a garbage can right underneath a huge oak tree that broke in half. This is not the only oak tree that breaks in this video. As this guy goes through, he shows all these broken oak trees, huge, heavy, sturdy, thick trees, and tons of garbage cans, you guys, that at worst were tipped over when the tree fell. You see? Now in my neighborhood, you guys, we use the same kind of garbage cans, and I can tell you we've had some pretty heavy winds and storms that have come through, and they've taken our garbage cans clear down the street with all the garbage strewn around in them, and they never once broke any of the very same trees that we have in our neighborhood. So there's something else going on here, because for you to have these garbage cans, I don't care, I mean, even if these things were filled with bricks, all right, a tree is still far more sturdy than a garbage can. And the fact that all you have here are a couple of garbage cans tipped over, no, there's just something else going on here. So I want to just point out a couple more examples of this where you see these huge broken trees, and see how it's kind of charred around the edges of these trees, guys. This is a telltale sign of electromagnetic damage, injury to a tree. See how it's charred here? These branches are charred not because of a fire. These are charred because there's been electromagnetic flux in the atmosphere. And what has made a cedar tree, which is super soft and supple, open up like an onion or a banana, has actually fried the innards of an oak tree to the point where it's so stressed that it actually broke. I mean, look around here, you guys. This does not look like a tornado has gone through here. It looks like charred branches have been singed. Because what happens, you guys, with trees, and I'll explain this. This is a little bit more complicated than I wanted to get into, but here's what happens with electromagnetic frequencies. They hit the tree, especially a tree with bark on it, and they encounter a dual density bilayer. So once they go through the bark, they hit the heartwood and they ricochet on the inside of the heartwood. And the heartwood heats up, and it causes the girth of the tree to shrink. And this all happens very, very rapidly. It causes rapid dehydration, and the branches of the trees are more susceptible to breakage. They can catch on fire quickly, which is why you see the fires on the inside of the trees, because essentially microwave energy will not go directly through a tree. That's why you cannot take an X-ray of a tree, you guys. Because electromagnetic frequencies, once they hit the bark of the tree, they ricochet on the inside of the heartwood, which is why so many trees in front of these cell phone towers lose their bark, because the girth of the heartwood underneath the bark shrinks, so the bark peels off. Okay, I know this is a lot more than you guys probably wanted to know, but the bottom line is I want you to notice that around where these trees have broken, they are charred. Not because there was a fire, but because the heat of the electromagnetic frequencies that are ricocheting on the inside of these trees, it's like it goes into a tunnel and it can't escape. That's why you can't X-ray. You can't X-ray a tree. That's why radar doesn't work in trees, because once those electromagnetic frequencies hit that bark, that dual density bilayer traps that electromagnetic energy inside that tree, and it can literally catch on fire from the inside. That is a telltale sign. That's it, you guys. So that's why these branches just fall right down. That's why those bushes that I showed you, those cedar trees, which are so malleable, do such a good job of giving us the signature that there's been an electromagnetic frequency anomaly here. So yeah, see this is, I don't know, I can't even really see these. I think this is an oak tree. But look at the branches just fell straight down. The tree just fell straight down. You know, there's some really weird stuff happening here. I don't know if you guys have seen the examples where you have railroad fire ties. You know, there are railroad ties that are used in gardening and stuff. The fire will be right in between the ends of them. There's something really messed up happening here. I don't know what accounts for this tree breaking here. I can't tell you that, but I can tell you what accounts for the branches breaking, and why when these are breaking, they're falling straight down. They're falling straight down from the tree instead of being blown across. If this was a tornado, you guys, these branches wouldn't be underneath this tree. If this was a tornado, these trees would be strewn all over the place. Now, there are areas in this particular video where they show, you know, but this is not, these are not tornado, this is not tornado damage. These are just broken branches. This is not something we're used to seeing unless there's a tornado. But you guys, there's something messed up happening here. Something super messed up. I mean, because look at the kind of damage that is done with the garbage can just standing right there. The garbage can. Now, if it tore up that tree, if there was wind strong enough to tear up that tree, don't you think it would have hit this garbage can? Don't you think it would have taken out this garbage can? Where is it? Let me just back this up a little bit and show you. There's the garbage can right there. See? So if it took out this huge oak tree, why wouldn't it have knocked the garbage can? Not just this garbage can, but that garbage can or any of the garbage cans in this neighborhood. So there's something super messed up here happening, you guys. And all we're actually observing, like Judy Wood used to say, just look at what you're observing and identify what you're observing. You are observing branches that have fallen down underneath the trees. You are not observing branches that are thrown, you know, half a block away. These are actually just falling right on the houses underneath them. So this is pretty messed up. Now, another thing I want to point out here, the signatures of look where this boat is burned. This boat, if you want to call it burned, I don't know what the heck happened to this boat, but it's the part that did suffer the destruction first was definitely where the metal motor was in the back. So that's a red flag to me, because, you know, metal, you guys, is conductive, which is why you can't put like aluminum foil in your microwave, okay? It'll explode things. So when electromagnetic frequencies hit metal, they intensify, which is why you're going to end up with these char marks around the metal poles that are holding up these docks. This is what's so freaky, you guys. All the char marks are around metal. And as he walks down this dock, you notice that the docks have sunk because they caught on fire at the part where the metal poles hold them up. This is really messed up. But look at that. The docks have caught on fire at the ends where the metal poles are. Just like this boat caught on fire where the metal motor is. See, look at this. In the dock caught on fire here, or charred at least, with the metal base. So there's something, this is, by the way, this is the same area where those side rails on the highway there caught on fire.
We've got an incredible interview from a fire captain who also has been training fire captains, who has experience for over 30 years. This is one of at least 2 interviews we're doing with firemen, local firemen who are going on record to tell us what happened in these fires and their versions. But anyway, let's listen to Captain John Lord. He lives in Lake County. He's going on record. He's a very brave and very smart man. When you started to see, probably on TV, the devastation when they started showing these homes and complete dustification, evaporation of all the buildings, what were you thinking as a fireman?
Well, I don't watch TV.
Okay.
I haven't watched TV in 25 years. So I get my information from the internet, and I have my sources that I go to. And the first thing that I noticed, I think, was the rapidity of the fire movement, which seemed abnormally fast to me, considering that there was no weather fronts or winds or anything that I was aware of that would have driven the fires that quickly. And also the number of fires was extremely alarming. Where did all these fires come from? Mm-hmm. How did they all start at once? And so I started digging. And when I started digging, I started looking at the research that was available for directed energy weapons and what I started reading actual government documents that people had put up, various people had put up on the website, and looking at the destruction, which I have never seen in my career, the totality of the destruction on the structures. There was absolutely nothing left of the structures except foundation. Now, I've seen that with other fires, but not where it moves like that. Not where the fire is moving and one side of the street everything's fine, the other side of the street it looks like a nuclear war zone. Never seen anything like that.
What other options could there be besides a high torch directed energy weapon that you could consider as a possibility in your experiences of all the firefighting you've done?
There's none that I could think of. There's none.
So this is the only plausible explanation that's being presented.
It's the only plausible explanation, in my opinion. That's the conclusion that I was brought to, based on my almost 30 years of experience.
And you know that steel melts in thousands of degrees and
Yes.
all this, and to see steel bent like that, but have vegetation and plant life and eucalyptus trees.
The holes that were burned through the hoods of cars all the way through the engine block are a little bit suspicious.
Wasn't that crazy? Let's talk for a sec about how a firestorm creates. And it's my understanding that a fire has to build its fuel and consume its oxygen to intensify over time as heat builds up over time. But we're having this firestorm. These fires happen in a matter of a couple hours and created thousands of degrees temperature without any provocation from fuel to build itself. It just happened, it seems like.
Yeah. It seems like...
Right. I mean, that's the only, I mean, it just happened over a couple hours, and then it was just about, you know, how the fires were spreading. But the initial destruction was here, there, and everywhere, and everything down to the bone of the homes, literally, where all that's left is the fireplace. But there's no iron tubs, there's no granite counters. I mean, we went through Old Redwood Highway here and went Mark Rest Road, and it was just amazing how there was nothing left. I mean, nothing.
Yeah.
And the fires, you know, they were out there within a few hours. So what could have caused that?
A normal temperature up high in a fully involved structure fire is around 1100 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
That's normally what we consider operating fire conditions, about 1100 degrees.
Did you hear anything about blue lights being seen? And anybody
Yes.
saying that?
I saw the photographic evidence on the internet.
Did you see, I heard of anybody else commenting that they've seen blue lights, like they've been commenting on my site that I saw blue flashes, I saw it, and other people have been saying it as well.
Yeah, just some in passing, but I saw actual photographs that people took from their cell phones, their cameras.
All right, and then how do you feel about learning that the Planning and Zoning Commission is having the exact same footprints nearly as these fires were, and that now they're declaring some of these areas from a previous fire that could be deemed a severe zone that maybe they shouldn't be rebuilt now? Have you any comment on that?
Well, I guess my comment would be that I'm fully aware of Agenda 21 and that it doesn't surprise me one bit.
And have you talked to other firemen as well about this? Are they on the same page as you, or are they even questioning this, or what are they thinking?
Yes, two others I've talked with directly about it, and we're all in agreement.
That something very strange,
Something
very unique and new has happened. Right. And have you been to tour the areas? Have you looked around at some of the areas?
Only what I've seen on the internet from overhead.
Gotcha.
And I just drove down 101, so what I could see from the freeway.
So just conjecture, what do you think these firemen who are looking at these fires they've never seen before and talking among themselves, how do you think are they talking about it? What do you think because they've never seen anything like it either. And listening to that Berkeley engine number 6 that came up and their whole journey through it, they were totally astounded where they couldn't even set up a base station to start fighting from because everything was on fire. We have 100,000 square foot Kmart completely torched by 3 a.m. in the morning, where these fires leapt across 8 lanes of road and torched the Kmart on the other side of the road. What kind of fire does that?
A fully sprinklered building.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing is California has one of the highest sprinkler laws in the country.
Not natural phenomena, unnatural phenomena. Like I said, I've never seen anything like it. And the other thing is that amongst some of the courses that I worked on, I taught a course, co-taught with others. That's where this t-shirt comes from. We flew back to Florida twice and worked with these guys one time for a week and taught a course on firefighter safety and survival. And so I have done a lot of case studies on different fires, both wildland and structural fires where firefighters have been killed. And I am telling you, based on my studies of actual case studies, that I've never seen anything like we just experienced in Northern California.
So who would be responsible in the greatest fire in California history to make a determination of what went down now for the officials? Since we have no official story 3.5 almost weeks out, who should be making that call and letting everybody know what they believe happened?
Well, I think that ultimately depends on how they bump it around within the government organizations and who they put in charge of the lead on it.
And do you have any? I mean, they won't come out and say directed energy weapons. They can't.
Not likely.
And so they're having tornado fire. I've heard bandied about Diablo winds, which I've lived in Northern California all my life. I never heard that term before until they just started throwing it out there. PG&E poles.
Serial arsonist.
Serial arsonist. Yeah, they have somebody was saying there was some jeans on fire on a road with matches in it. Things like that. But it's amazing that we're not even having the greatest fire in history, even a scenario being brought to the front about how this possibly could have happened. But yet over 100,000 people are lost their homes, and now they're meeting tomorrow with the EPA and FEMA, who've moved into Santa Rosa along with the military police, and they're going to dictate what these people's lives are going to be going forward if we don't get to them and start helping them ourselves, right?
Right.
And you were talking about the spiritual journey. You want to talk about how this is a spiritual war? You want to get into that at all?
Not really right now, but I would like to say this, is that my heart goes out to all those people that have been victimized by this fire in one way or another. Those that were lost, those that were injured, those that lost property in their homes. And I don't know what's going to happen, but I think that as we as human beings and as a community come together, that we can help one another more than anticipating any help from the government. And that's my 2 cents on it.
And are you willing to go and talk with other firefighters and see if they can help out and other people can be brought up to speed that we need to come together as a community? Because
Absolutely.
Because my feeling is we just got attacked.
Yeah, firefighters, you got to understand nature beast with firefighters is that we love helping people.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what firefighters are all about. So, I know many just outstanding people in the service. So, not everybody's aware of what's going on, but that's the way it always goes.
Well, and you're the first responders. That's what we always call you in all the letters and over the freeways. Thank you, first responders. And I want to thank you personally, John, for coming here, and also for all the career, all you've done to help others and give. Because one thing I've learned about firemen is they get into business because they want to help. They get into business because they want to, quote, save lives. And they're first responders that put themselves on the line. Here they go after a fire they've never seen before in the middle of the night, this had to be called the Beast Fire. I mean, this is so amazing what just happened here. Until you're actually seeing it and being around it, you can't appreciate the devastation that went on in certain areas, and then just over the hill, completely normal, natural, everybody's back to everyday life. And so we have so many people that are displaced, but with the fireman community, other first responders that want to build, we're out of the ashes going to come something better. But it's going to be a community organizing effort, not dictating from the federal government down to these people who've lost everything, and now they're being told they can't go back to their homes, and we're going to give them some opportunities because we care. And all of us are going to do it because we care, and it's not going to be about us. We're going to join the firemen, we're going to join other community leaders. leaders, but this is going to be exciting. And the spiritual part I was bringing that we were talking about earlier is this is about empathy. This is about giving to the greater good of all. And this is what we're supposed to all be about, I feel. And so with your giving and giving your time here to go on record, which is big, thank you, John. I mean, and thank you, Captain East Bay, for your input as well. And hopefully this will shed a little light and others will step forward and not be afraid to speak their truth about what they know, because a lot of people have secrets, and we need to all come out now, and we need to come together and really, be the change we wish to see. So thank you, John, for your time. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. And there is only one truth.
But here is actual pictures of lightning strikes in Italy. Look at the lightning. Look at the lasers. And we're going to get a little more into the lasers here. You can buy a laser at 7-Eleven and point it up and hit a pilot coming in a few thousand feet. That's commercial. Buy it at your store. But there's also lasers that apparently are being used to take down bridges. I don't have any evidence of this, but it's very circumstance that how a bridge in Italy the other day completely collapsed out of nowhere, where you could see the rain was not that heavy, and it just, when does rain bring down a construction steel bridge anyway? This happened in Genoa, Italy. I believe it was August 14th. It was built in 1968. And all of a sudden, this bridge just collapses out of nowhere. They're calling it a violent storm caused the collapse, which is absolutely ridiculous. When does a storm cause a bridge to collapse? So here we see the federal fault lines. You wonder why the California states are being burned up. It's all controlled by federal land. Shout out to the firefighters who are risking their lives. Some are dying, some are breathing in toxicity all over from these directed energy weapons that are clearly being used. California is clearly under attack, as well as many other states and many other countries as well. So as the explanations by the fire officials get fewer and fewer, we are finding they are taking more and more assertive measures to keep the public from truly discovering and finding out what's going on. They're banning drones that could kill, and they're charging $20,000 fines for anybody flying drones. Here's on our web page and Facebook. The fires were between 5 and 20 miles apart. Car windows vaporized. Wheel and steel parts melted. Trees burning from inside out. Homes burning without burning the landscape or trees. Cars mysteriously burned, turning over on their roofs. Crescent-shaped cars from drivers to seats. Hundreds of people dead. But there's more than that, folks. There was 170 fires in 9 different counties. It started in Santa Rosa, Sonoma County, Mendocino County, in October 9th. Look at that. There were supposed to be winds. Do you see any debris? Any debris at all? Look at how these selective fires targeted here and here across the 6-lane freeway, when supposedly it was all about the winds that came out of nowhere. There was no storm forecast that day. Peaked up at 2,000 feet up to some 80 miles an hour and dropped right back down. And here's another huge anomaly, and I'm going to keep harping on this. The winds came from the east. We have the Sierra Nevadas. There's no winds that ever come from the east. We got the Pacific Ocean. And here is proof positive once again. This is actual photographic evidence of the day, the morning of the fires. Look at the westerly winds blowing to the west, not the east. They're up in the Sierras. You have plumes going towards the east. But there's proof evidence, as well as this proof provided by Mental Boost and in Truth by Grace.
As I watch this video by Mental Boost here, you see that it is in fact that piece of wood that is burning right at the point where the nails or the bolts are in there. And he goes through this video and he actually shows how this sign here, as compared to Google Earth, he demonstrates.
Daily, and she has been working as a real estate agent. She is also a property manager, and she has become very concerned what she has been discovering over the past few months. She lost her home in the Fountain Grove area, so this is a very personal thing with her, and she's been speaking to insurance companies, and she's been learning about Agenda 21 on Fast Track. So without further ado, let me join us in welcoming Angela.
Thank you. Okay, I'll grab my my phone right now and turn it on when I need it. It's off now, so okay. All right. Hello. Hi. Oh, sure. Excuse me. Okay. Oh, thank you for having me. This is so nice to meet everyone and to be here tonight. I'm the newbie in the room, so I'm getting to know you, and I have to tell you, it's been a road I never would have expected I would ever be on. Just in a million years, never had any idea that I'd be standing here. So I'm really grateful for the work you've been doing. I've been finding out about all the work you've been doing. It's just amazing work. So I'll just get started and jump in here. I found out about the Eagle Forum about a month ago, and it came to me through a website, and someone mentioned something about Agenda 21. And I thought, oh, I've got to contact this person. And she didn't have anything to say. She just said, hey, here's a magazine, or it was a Sentinel, actually. And things went from there, and I ended up talking to Orlene. And I just kind of got, like Orlene said, fast-tracked on a lot of this. As a backdrop, I first heard about Agenda 21 about 10 years ago. And from the few people that I had spoken with about this, or that brought it to my attention, they kind of dropped the subject and they didn't continue following it, nor did I. I looked it up from time to time, but I didn't see how it was going to be moving forward on a local level. I got it that it was going on globally, and I understood sort of the powers that be, and I come from a worldview, keeping my eye more or less on the end times from a biblical perspective. And one world currency, one world government, one world leader. We kind of know these things are coming. They've been prophesied, and it's all pretty plain to see. But I did not understand what part of these end times I might be experiencing this way. And I had I heard about this at ground zero with my own eyes. I'm up into my eyeballs with this, and I don't really have a choice. I didn't ask for this. But one thing I did have knowledge of was a book by Naomi Klein called The Shock Doctrine, where she talks about the similarities to the Nazis' use of the word homeland and homeland surveillance, and how it had to do with after 9/11, we saw the same term, homeland and homeland security, being implemented in the United States. And there were just some amazing parallels. So, but again, I didn't know how or where to step in and get involved. And then, of course, Deborah and Paul and Orlene, the way that they present it to the community is very user-friendly, and I appreciate that. So I had also read a book called The Economic Hitman by John Perkins, and I think that's another must-read. I also read in college a book called Night by Elie Wiesel. It's an amazing book. Well, first of all, John Perkins, when he talks about the book The Economic Hitman, it really makes it clear about these kinds of international, how we go internationally. Everybody does, all these companies, the multinationals and the NGOs. And he really talks about how it's all part of a bigger picture, and all the big players from a very big political and a geopolitical and a financial perspective. And I just didn't, that's been an amazing read, and didn't really know what to do with that information, but I've sort of had my eyes on it, and you can get familiar with the companies that he kind of refers to off and on on the stock market, and I'm still kind of iffy about even when I purchase something, I have to say, am I supporting this? What am I? Anyway, we can go there forever, but that's a long rabbit trail. But another book called Night by Elie Wiesel. He was a concentration camp survivor, and one of the most eerie takeaways from that book was his description of the way that martial law was implemented and how people were led into trains. Oh, it just kind of takes my breath away talking about it. One thing I have seen since the fires is an ever-present police force. I am telling you, I can't count how many times in a given day I see police and sheriff's cars, and I never used to see them before. I'm not usually looking for them, but I'm not even looking for them now, and they're just everywhere. I've never seen this before. And to think that the SMART train is in Coffey Park, where they want to add a higher density housing in a walkable, sustainable community, you know, where people will potentially have the train for transportation, that just really concerns me. So that brings us to today, kind of the backdrop, how I kind of got here, a little bit about what I've seen. So briefly about myself, while I'm not working right now as a real estate agent, I've been involved in real estate for most of my working life, doing property management and flipping homes, and most recently involved with some land development. I've been married 30 plus years to an engineering manager of a high-tech manufacturing company. My husband and I and our college-age son lost our home on August 8th, having about 15 minutes to leave. There was no power, no contact lenses were on. It was pitch dark. The CO2 monitor sirens were sounding off. It was just incredibly loud. Flashlights weren't working properly. There was thick smoke, and there were no fire trucks, none, and no sirens in sight. This was intentional. I smelled smoke at 10 p.m., and I received a Nixle report. And the Nixle report said, multiple fires are reported around Sonoma County. This is a quote. We currently have fires at Mark West Springs and Rebley Road in Santa Rosa. That's 2 miles or so where I live from where I live. Shiloh and Condi in Windsor, and Highway 116 at Fredericks and Sebastopol. Local fire departments are on scene and will notify you if any evacuations are called for. The strong winds are making these fires difficult. Dispatchers are being overwhelmed by 911 calls on reports of smoke smell. Please only call 911 if you see actual unattended flames. All right, so then at 10 o'clock, we had the police with, or I'm sorry, 1 o'clock, 1 a.m., we had the police with no sirens, just lights on, not the fire department, telling people door to door that they had to leave. Later we learned that the fire chief and his lieutenant were both off duty that night. And I found that very odd that no backup protocols, apparently, I don't know, were not used or weren't used instead, and that they apparently were out of reach or something. I mean, this just doesn't add up. Now, I can go on and on. I don't want to spend all of our time on the oddities of that night, but you get the picture. There's just more than 1,000 red flags going on here. So from the beginning, there was a total abandonment of the authorities to use the emergency systems. We also had a landline, but with the power out, it didn't work. So immediately I knew that these fires weren't normal. And it had to be I believed it had to be some kind of a military operation, and that is still my belief right now. I started looking up videos of the fires and saw how directed energy weaponry, also called DEW, apostrophe S, DEW weaponry, laser is actually what it is. It's DEW microwave technology, and it's very well documented in its patented technologies, and we can look at that and find those very quickly. I've got plenty of YouTubes to talk to you about. But anyway, this is not a harebrained idea. This is expensive, multi-billion-dollar corporate and governmental work here on these technologies. These DEWs, I believe, have been used. Too many fires in 2 locations all at once, all burning as if set on fire at once. Nowhere did I see videos of areas catching on fire and spreading. Though it may have happened, all I knew and saw was literally that everything was on fire at the same time. And that's what the videos show. And I saw that night, and I was befuddled. I was befuddled with these fires just everywhere, all at once, all around us. No warning. It just didn't add up. Let's see, I was here talking about things were spreading fire, and everything was on fire at the same time, including when we fled to Vacaville that night. The entire wall of the eastern hills south of Santa Rosa were all on fire at the same time. And I just don't see how it could have spread that fast, that far, and done that amount of damage in 2 to 4 hours. Plus, 101 was closed northbound at the same time, with the same amount of damages kind of going on everywhere all at once. I believe Paradise Ridge Winery reportedly was completely engulfed in flames around 1 or 1:30 at the same time my home was on fire, yet it's about 1.5 miles west of my home. So how did embers fly that far and that fast and engulf Paradise Ridge Winery, engulf it in flames at the same time my house was just supposedly catching on fire? It just doesn't add up if we're talking this theory of embers and what have you. Anyway, so I never heard of an unannounced hurricane force of unannounced hurricane force winds coming from the east in the middle of the night that suddenly started and stopped within 2 to 3 hours. And you can check the weather that night. It's on record. There's a sharp spike, and it's just there when everything came flooding into the area where I was. And maybe I don't know what the weather report or how things moved from the perspective of the fire, how the fire itself moved, but the winds spiked at about, I believe it was around 11 or 12 o'clock, and it spiked for about 2 to 3 hours. You can see it. It just went from 10 to 12, spiked, and then came back down, and about 2 to 3 o'clock it was back down where it was at 10, and then it just precipitously dropped again. It just doesn't add up. And to me, and I've never heard of that. They're hurricane force winds, and there are no investigations today that have determined a cause. Another thing is, where's the debris? If these were hurricane force winds, why is everything everywhere just, the streets are pristine? You drive down, there's just ash. Hurricane force winds would blow so many things over. The only thing I've ever seen overturned in this is cars, and they have holes in them. You know, I mean, no, that doesn't add up. Cars aren't supposed to. How about a few trees? How about a few garbage cans? There's pictures of houses that are ash, and the garbage can is just right next to it, a few feet away, and it's standing there. And this is right after the fire. We have a fountain thing, a little thingy in the front, and it's not big, but I mean, why wasn't that knocked over? I had tomato plants. The planters weren't even knocked over in my backyard. Come on, everything is fried. You've got hurricane force winds, and you're trying to tell me everything in my yard is right where I left it? I can't believe this. You know, this is just not a believable story. So, not that the winds weren't there, but when they were there, I don't know what they were doing, but they sure were not propagating the fire the way that it's being told, in my opinion. So, number one, DEWs. This is patented technology. Lockheed Martin and maybe others, I'm not sure about all of the manufacturers. Rumsfeld and Petraeus are on record in a video saying that they have this technology, and they were testing it. This is back in, I think, 2003. And they hope not to use it. And they go on saying things like, but there may be a need that we can't foresee, and that kind of thing. So this is a chilling video. And then another thing that's very chilling is the video of the Kmart building here in town. Concrete jungle and ash, 100,000 square foot building burned down in 1 hour, everything in it. I'm not a forensics expert, but that doesn't add up. Where in the world did this fire come from? You just cannot convince me that embers flew over and took down 100,000 square feet. I'll never believe that. That's just improbable as heck. And if somebody can disprove that, I'd like to see that. I'd like to see that. So I just have had all these things with the I believe it's directed energy weaponry, and also there's some talk about the Walmart and FEMA buildings. I think Kmart and other soon-to-be empty, once thriving commercial buildings will become warehouses someday for weaponized humans through more disasters and engineered health crises, whether it's brought on by microwave technology, mandatory flu shots, dams collapsing, created EMP like I believe we had the night of the fires. There were talks about these fires, the power going out before the fires were reported. So they weren't created by the fires. So what took them out? What took the power out? If that's true. Now I don't have the records for that. That's what I've heard, so we can check that out. But that's another question to answer. And by the way, the exact same video footage of the LA fires is going, when you look at these LA fires, it's the same footprint. It's staggering. there are no words to describe this. This is like a war zone. And it looks nothing like something burnt. It looks like something completely incinerated. It looks like a graveyard. And so there's this website I want to direct people to. It's called aplaintruth.info. Excellent resources for some of these ideas here that he just does a very good job, I think. And number two is, why would our government do this to us? Okay, if you're wondering, gee whiz, okay, you're blowing yourselves up, and you're damaging the environment, etc. Why would people do this? Well, I would recommend people see Deborah's video on USA Inc. And I'm not going to attempt to put it in her words. She can do a much better job, an excellent job. But I'm aware that Agenda 21 has literally commoditized us. And then so there's this book here, and I didn't quite understand if Agenda 21 was real until this gentleman brought this on somewhere, and he said, you can buy this, so I bought it. And it was inexpensive and whatever, and well, it says right here on page, and this is the original kind of the founding version, if you will. This is like the template for the soft treaty that they used. And then it became hard treaty, but and you may know this, you guys are all the Agenda 21 experts, but I'm just still learning this. And what I found out was on page 1 of the intro page, it says from the top page, explaining Agenda 21 is action to be implemented, quote, by governments, development agencies, UN, NGOs, and independent sector groups in every area where human, parentheses, economic, those are their words, economic activity affects the environment. Well, we're human. And that means that they've just called us economic resources. All right, so they are saying that humans are economic activity and that we can be collateralized. So page 2 goes, and you could go on and find more. I'm just giving you a brief, if you read, you just kind of go, wow, there it is. I can give you those and you can follow up on it. Page 2 and 3 go on to say that combating poverty is the main problem for the environment. Poverty and environmental, this is their quote, poverty and environmental degradation are closely interrelated. Global environmental deterioration is an unsustainable pattern of consumption and production, particularly in the industrialized countries, which aggravates poverty and imbalances. So, in order to reach environmental sustainability, that's the end of the quote. So, in order to reach environmental sustainability, poverty has to go. And that means humans, especially in the developed countries that, quote, aggravate poverty and imbalances. Wow, that's a pretty huge statement. So several sources, such as the Georgia Guidestones, has as its number one tenet, maintain humanity under 500 million people in perpetual balance with nature. So we are subject to nature, how they determine whatever that is. If they think we're harming nature, we got to go. I mean, that's and not to mention the number. I mean, how are you going to get rid of 6.5 billion people? I'm starting to understand how. It's just really, this is like, and for all of you who've been up to speed with this for a while, I got to tell you, oh man, this will keep you up at night. This is not a fun thing to study. I wish I could go back in time. I'm so grieving for the day when I kind of thought the world was a lot friendlier and that things were much further out, a few generations, or maybe this was just a bad, somebody wearing, promoting a lot of ideas that weren't well-founded, but if you carried them out, perhaps. No, I'm getting it. These are not just well-founded. These are being very, very clearly and forcefully exacted. Pardon me? It is an action plan, and they make it very clear. And they are executing to it brilliantly, and I need to get up to speed. So that's, man, this is not easy. Whew, so, let's see. I believe Santa Rosa is a test case, in part because we have an active resistance here, but also because they have the SMART train now. Thanks to the fire, they may have a ready-to-implement walkable, sustainable community in Coffey Park, which people like Shirley Zane continue to insist that they will push through. And that's You can read her quotes in the Press Democrat and on and on. I brought some of them too if you want to talk about it. As for Fountain Grove, this allows A21 communities to cover both sides of the freeway. Not that I understand, I'm just guessing at this point. And it made it a handy excuse that the fires burn in the exact same footprint as the Hanley fire in 1964. And it created absolute financial havoc on as many people as possible in the community. Also, if the government is using geoengineered suicide or genocide, then suicide, could they? Please. No, I'm sorry, I don't mean that. I truly don't. I don't want anyone to die. I truly want people to come to Christ, understand the truth, and to know the value of human life, and to be deeply, deeply repentant, because these are evil times. And this is so serious. It's just so horribly difficult. And sometimes I have to make light of it to get through it, because what we're talking about here is not small. Anyway, if the government is using geoengineered genocide, then they got to test it on us. We're a test case, I believe, with the DEWs of this magnitude, and then they went south. So that's my theory. All right. Insurance. My agent said that foundations have not historically been insured as separate items, as they don't usually burn. However, most, if not all, of these and the LA fires have burned to the foundations. So who's going to cover this? This is an additional expense. My insurance broker said that all of the California taxpayers, or not taxpayers, insurance payers, will have rates increasing to pay for these losses, and some will not be able to afford insurance. Also, agents are being sued now, with people saying that they should have had them insured if they were already in a fire hazard area. So there's more costs ahead. And who was really responsible? And then it's the passing of the buck. Well, the city approved it, but you didn't. We didn't insure. Well, you said it was, and we can't account for it, so now we're all in it together. And you know what I'm saying? Yeah. All right. So that's how that went. And I have to say that was tricky, because that was interesting, because for me, when I walk around, and I do a lot of, I sometimes have looked at some of these places, not so much, but just anyway, and it doesn't matter. My point is, when I've looked at these areas, I have seen all the foundations ruined. I haven't seen a single foundation that did survive. That's just me. Maybe there is one. I just haven't seen it. Now, I'm not an expert. I don't go around, talking to every structural engineer in town. But just even looking, if you know anything about foundations, you just go, nope, nope. And it's pretty easy to figure out. So, the whole issue comes up as this is what can put people over the top. If they had a policy that didn't have the current square footage costs, if you bought your home in 1990 and your home burned and you had a policy on it that covered a $200 per square foot cost on it, and now let's just say building costs are $400, just random, then where's that difference going to come from? Well, maybe you can have a policy that can cover some of that, but if your foundation is gone, you're toast. That's the bummer. That's the rub. That's the big surprise here for everybody. So, who would know? Who would think? And another thing, if you want to, oh my gosh, you want to talk about a trippy thing about DEWs and how these fires burn so intensely and so hot and so at the ground. Look up a Paradise Ridge video, you can probably find it, and it's literally showing the ground, the wine that's spilled out of the wherever, and the ground is boiling, and it's just dirt, and it's boiling. It is on fire. How is that possible? And another thing is, if you think about it, how did these foundations burn? If heat rises, how did these so-called embers come in on the top, blow in, boo-boo, and burn down? And have you seen the video of the guy who took the video of the tree that's on fire and it's burning from the inside out? Have you seen? There's so much of this kind of thing. So, foundations. And when you look at those videos, everything is burning on a pad. I don't know if anybody's, but I just look at those videos out there, and even the next day, I just went, wait, what? Because everything was just burning so perfectly square, on fire, a square, all perfectly square fire, just square fires. What? No, I'm not getting that. I just don't see that any more than I saw the 911 buildings come down in a straight column. That just defies gravity and everything else, and that's demolition. That's got to be controlled demolition. They just do that with 2- and 3-story buildings, not to mention those big ones. So anyway, if you look at the maps, maps. I was going to show you. Okay, I brought some supports here. Let me show you, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. So now we're into kind of the nitty gritty with these pictures here. I don't know. You might have already seen these. Has everyone seen the simulated reserve corridor system? You all seen this? You're all familiar with this?
Some of us.
Okay, and then where human access is denied? Yeah. Okay, and so this is California, and I didn't do the whole that first one I showed you was the United States. But is everybody familiar with what Santa Rosa and this area looks like? You can look at it and it's online. All this is, this isn't proprietary, it's just, So it's pretty shocking when a person starts to look at where we can't go and what's planned. So the question becomes, of course. So thank you. So the red is where there can be, let me get my glasses on just so I say it right. The red areas are called core reserves and corridors, which are little to no human use. Little to none. Humans cannot go there. The yellow are buffer zones, which are highly regulated use. And then the normal use zones of cooperation, all the sustainability and Agenda 21 cooperative communities are in the green. Our area is in a green here, but I don't know all the boundary lines. I'm still not sure. I'd like to get more information on this if anybody has it, because I'd like to know more. And then of course there's the international Indian reservations are in the pink and that sort of thing. And there's a big border down here. And I wondered if that's what we're funding for the wall, which we're calling the wall, which is all passed through NAFTA. Doesn't that make perfect sense? Doesn't that make perfect sense? Yeah. We're paying for that wall whether we wanted one or not, whether we get one or not. It'll be there one day. It just will keep us in. That's the goal. Keep us in. That's the tricky. Oh, all right. Now I know okay. I'm going to be in. There's nobody out. Okay. I just don't think like that. I am too slow. I'm too slow on the uptake. That's why I have to work so hard to catch up. It's like, man, it's like following the butterfly here. Whew. So, right? Oh my gosh! All right. So, is your home in a yellow area where housing will ultimately be prohibited through impossible regulations, such as updating your home to these current building code standards? And I love what you read tonight in the Gazette, I believe you read, or one of it is about the codes. This is what we're hearing. So, can your rural fire or police station be closed due to the lack of funding, making all homes in your area non-conforming and uninsurable? And this gets back to whether or not there will be solvency in these insurance industries. I mean, really, what are they going to do? What happens? Is the state going to take them over if they become insolvent? We don't even know the extent of the damage. I mean, it's just going on and on and on. And then one Valley Fire victim said that 5 of her 35 homes in her area were rebuilt and the rest have walked away. So that was an interesting statistic.
The Valley Fire was 2015.
15, yes, in Middletown, and I guess I don't even know the extent of the fire. So toxins, with debris everywhere, with water runoff, could we become a Superfund site? That was the very first question I asked my insurance agent, my broker. Her face went blank, and she had no answer, which is understandable. I don't know how they could have an answer yet. But right now, if you build on the same footprint, not enlarging your pad, you can expedite your permit process. But even so, will there be any new regulations before and while people are rebuilding that will come up that will make our area uninsurable, the area you're building? Then what is your home or lot going to be worth if it's declared uninsurable? Or in these fire zones, there's a huge risk to rebuild. And then there's a glut. Right now there's a glut of vacant lots on the market, driving prices of lots down even further. And what carriers will be able to insure the lots in the future if the industry is taking a hit? Okay, will the feds or the state have to step in? And then debt. So debt is apparently the only way out through these FEMA and SBA loans for a lot of people. It's been that way with the hurricanes. So I've heard that some banks will receive disaster relief funds and then only offer it as a loan, albeit lower rates, to victims to rebuild what insurance doesn't cover. And, you know, you think about that, they're using it more or less as a slush fund. I mean, that's just so cruel to me. If you want to, you know, request, you know, hey, come on, give some disaster assistance to the victims, we'll distribute this. Really? We don't really usually, I've never asked, how is that going to get distributed? Do you call me? Do I call you? And they gave out some, you had to fill out a form and this and that, and the amount that I saw was like $1,000. All right, I don't know if that's going to, I don't know. I don't know what happens to all that money. I would just love to see some accountability in the disaster relief efforts. Love to see that. Yeah, I know. Dream on. Okay, so then I want to show you this video of what Santa Rosa was saying in 2017. And I'll leave you on this because this to me is, this is where we're at with things. Oh, and then this is a picture. If you would like to come, I won't show right now, but if you'd like to come up later, of just the what I'm talking about. This is one of any picture you can pull, but it has the Fountain Grove area, and you can just see where, to me, the lines don't come through. This doesn't add up. The lines, the path isn't clearly delineated here because this path starts over here. All right, you see, okay, maybe some fire burn, but then these are toast. And these trees are alive, and it didn't jump across. And these neighbors, I know who these people are, and there's nothing that came over their side. And it certainly didn't come from the green. So and it didn't come from over here. I mean, it just doesn't
drop from the sky.
Right, you know. So that's one example. That's one example. And this is a line that they drew for that same area. I just pulled it up. And they've got these red and yellow areas here, which are, BLM has put these together. Bureau of Land Management, and is showing the lines that they're gonna declare as, like, the orange, the darker orange is a high fire hazard area, and the yellow is a high fire. Very high fire is the orange, and high fire is the lighter color, and then there's I don't know. You have to ask. Okay, they're already redrawing the lines, but I don't know where I fit. I don't know. We'll see, right? So, and then I want to play you this. This is called "How and Why California Fires Were DEW Created." DEW, Directed Energy Weaponry, and this guy. But I'm telling you, hang on just 1 second. Maybe I can find it again. But why isn't that there? I just can't believe it because it showed the whole 3 minutes I was in here watching it. A minute.
That's your number, and they're going to get you now.
Yeah. Well, they already did. Okay, and we're past that. We're past that.
There are many other ways.
There are. Oh, of course. That's right.
So give us the summation of what
Yeah.
he's saying.
So the bottom line of what he said, I'm going to turn my phone off. He says the following. He has a graphic up there, and I can tell you where it is. Go to minute 14. Actually 13 and a half. And so I'll spare you the whole, if you don't have time, you can just go to minute 13 and a half. Why is this not turning off? There. And what it is it came from the city of Santa Rosa, and it makes it really clear. This woman is saying that they have these rezoning efforts in place, and these are going to be very difficult for people. It's going to put us out of being able to rebuild, basically, and that these lines mirror the same lines, and what she's talking about, the fact that some of these people are kind of arrogant in thinking that people won't find out about this. I mean, it goes on. It's quite interesting information, and he's got the thing right there to read it word for word. I'm, giving you just a sentence or so. But it's an amazing piece of information. So I feel like I've gone on too long, but I appreciate it, and thanks, and God bless all of us. Thank you.
Let the love light in. Let the love light in. Let the love light in. cried easily, never wanted anyone to see me. Now it's time to let the old ghost die. I'm crying for my mother, crying for my father, crying for my unborn son. I'm crying for my heartbeat, crying for the beauty, crying for the girl I was. Oh, my breaking heart, don't stop now. Oh, my aching heart, go deeper. Crack you open. So I'm crying for my brother, crying for my sister, crying for the dream undone.